Okay. I'm gonna go live here. I don't think I edition of Sparkle Saturdays. We are about to start. However, share this information, share the live, share the link with your friends, because we are going to have a very beneficial and very important conversation about mental health. I'm so excited about my guest. She's been on the show. This is her second time. And
I don't know how she got me to come back. Well, I do. It's because of my love for her.
Look, so tea with Tara, okay? Tea with Tara. We have our tea. Get your tea, whatever you're sipping on. If you want to do your gloves and your hat, go get that ready and join us here, right here. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation with Tara. And I told her just now, yes, when it's stuff you shy away from that you're not necessarily so comfortable in, that's where God will put you. That's where He's going to put you and stretch you and challenge you. So I thank you for coming back again, sis.
Thank you. I must have done something right to be
Absolutely. An amazing sparkle sister. Amazing. So we're going to start at 7. So share this live, invite your friends, remind your friends to join us. Thank you all who have joined so far. In just a few minutes, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to let her introduce herself, fully, and then we'll get started. But grab your tea. If you got a hat, I had a hat, but I was like, I don't know if I like the way it looked on camera. So I'm just gonna go hat free.
We're doing our Arabian style.
Yes,
tea.
we are.
Like, I guess you could say our bias.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we are coming to you live from Abu Dhabi, which is part of the United Arab Emirates. It is the capital. So a lot of people, when I say I live in Abu Dhabi, they don't know where it is. So I always have to say I'm just like an hour or so from Dubai.
I have people who still think I live in Dubai.
Yes. Don't they always say, how are things in Dubai? No, we live in Abu Dhabi, and honestly, I prefer Abu Dhabi to Dubai. So look, y'all come to the UAE, visit, do your travel. Make sure you spend some time in Abu Dhabi because this is a really special, special place. So get your tea, get your hats, get your gloves if you like. And I have this tea set. My sister gave me this tea set for Christmas, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Could have been longer than that now. I can't remember. But I brought it with me here to Abu Dhabi because my sister gave it to me. And she had it filled with all kinds of treats. And my sister is an artist, so you can imagine it was really beautiful, the presentation. And I left it like that for weeks before I decided to actually use the tea set because it was so beautifully wrapped, the way she had all the snacks and stuff in it. So that's why I have this tea set. You all, if you want to drop in the chat what your tea set looks like, if you have one, or your favorite tea set, your favorite mug, whatever it is, drop it in the chat so we can see what you have and share what kind of tea you're sipping on. We are currently sipping on black currant tea. And actually, it's your first time having it. How do you like it?
Yes, I like it. I really do.
That's
Yeah,
good.
Something.
That's good. Okay. All right, y'all. It's 7 o'clock. So please continue to share this live with your friends and family so they can join us for this intuitive conversation on mental health. All right, so let's officially start the show. I am Kimberly Braxton, your dedicated life transformation strategist who helps Black women reclaim their lives, set empowering boundaries, and master self-care rituals. I'm so excited to have this Sparkle Saturday episode, Tea with Tara, and we're talking about mental health, maintaining mental health in a busy world. We're super, super busy nowadays, and we have to remember that our mental well-being is just as important as our physical well-being. So thank you for tuning in. And my guest is Tara Thompson, and I'm gonna let you tell those, what are those letters behind your name? Like, she got a lot of letters behind her name. And I was like, what is your actual title? Like, I don't know what the letters stand for. So I'm gonna let her do it.
Hello, everyone. I am Tara Thompson. I'm from Durham, North Carolina. I am a dual licensed counselor. So my first license is school counseling, and then my second license is licensed clinical mental health counselor. So it used to be LPC, but then they added it in as licensed clinical mental health counselor. So that's what the letters are behind my name. This T with Tara, I have to give credit to Kimberly. She coined that. She is speaking that into me, saying that that's my next move. But T with Tara is simply just taking effective action for your well-being, with my focus specifically being on mental health.
Love it. Yeah, she did it at our school. And I was like, oh, I love that. T with Tara, because it stands for something, right? And then she always has like the TNT, and the tea is her thing, and she likes drinking tea. And she did that at our school where we had the T, but the T actually stood for take effective action. I was like, this is so amazing. So let's get into this very first question. And I'm gonna have to put on my glasses because y'all know I'm 52 now. So I need my
I
glasses.
don't look a day over 40.
Oh, thank you. All right, so you already introduced yourself. So tell us where you're from, and you can also tell what you do.
Okay. So I'm from Durham, North Carolina, known as the Bull City. And I currently reside in Abu Dhabi. I am a school counselor. I've been a school counselor for over 12 years. I also work part-time as an outpatient therapist. I haven't done a lot of work in outpatient therapy. So my emphasis, or my focus so far, or the past few years, I should say, has been school counseling.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just want to say we are streaming live on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And we have 2 different devices. So you might see us looking up, you might see us looking down a little bit, but understand we're streaming on 2 different platforms, 3 different platforms, and 2 different devices. Okay. But we're here with you. We're here with you. Okay. All right. So first of all, how did you become interested in mental health?
It's interesting. You couldn't have told me I wasn't going to be a lawyer, right? For many, many years, that's all I would say. I think even in my high school yearbook, it said law. But what I have learned about myself over the years is that I always wanted to advocate and be a voice for others. But I learned that my advocacy shows up in the sense of me being there to help, be a listener, to help people feel seen, heard, and needed, because, those are the fundamental things that we need to feel, or, we desire as humans. And so I started out as a special ed teacher, did that for 2 years. Actually, I did it for a little more than 2 years. But during that span of time, I found more joy, more satisfaction in the conversations that I had with students outside of the classroom or outside of teaching, where they were coming and I was just being a listening ear. Just helping them navigate just the woes of being a teenager. And at the time I was working at West Charlotte High School, shout out to the Dub. They had a phenomenal counseling team, and I would often spend time up there with them. And so it just sparked my interest in going into school counseling. So I pursued my master's, but it wasn't until I was actually in the program, the counseling program, where my love for mental health and the importance of mental health really started thriving in me. Like, the passion developed. I was fortunate enough to do my counseling program at North Carolina A&T State University. And so through that, there's a part in the program you have to do counseling. And so when you experience counseling, or you experience a focus on being intentional about taking care of yourself, your mental health, it empowered me to want to inspire and encourage others to learn more about it and put emphasis on your mental health.
Nice. Okay. Shout out to the HBCU grads in the house. Yeah. BUU also is in the house. I gotta say,
J.C. Smith Smith University.
she's a double HBCU
Yes.
grad.
Yes.
So I just want to shout out all the HBCUs. Drop in the chat if you graduated from an HBCU. Like, I love all HBCUs.
Yes.
Of course, I love mine the most, but I love them all. So drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
And let's get into the next question after I sip on black currency. Okay, so thank you for giving us the insight on how you became interested in mental health. So let's get into like this whole the busyness like this. So in today's fast-paced world, what are some common signs that someone's mental health might be suffering due to a busy lifestyle?
So these signs are probably signs that you might experience periodically throughout just life, right? The fatigue that you have, the inability to concentrate, interrupted sleep. There's also just inability to, like, your mood swings. Like, we all have mood swings. And let me say this, these things that I'm stating in regards to symptoms, we all go through life and we have moments and bouts of sadness. We all have moments where we're just restless, there's some stress. But those are indicators, right? These are indicators that you need to take a moment and pause and do a wellness check to make sure that you are governing yourself or managing your mental health properly. So again, sleep, being fatigued. You also may have some physical ailments, such as headaches.
Ooh.
You may have some stomach aches, chest pains. There are times sometimes where anxiety can become so intense where I almost feel like a heart attack. So just any type of physical ailments like that. Also, just irritability, like quickly to get irritated with things that you didn't normally get irritated with. Inability to, like, your inability to want to be around people, like wanting to withdraw. Now, sometimes we do need to retreat, but it's those feelings where, like, just nothing just seems to, like, want to flow the way it normally does. There's an interruption, or your daily routines, your daily flow of how you move about throughout life is interrupted. And I do want to preface it, this too, while we're talking about the symptoms, but like when we talk about mental health, I want to make sure we understand what mental health is, because a lot of times we associate mental health as, one, you're always supposed to be happy. Like, you know, when we talk about mental health, you always hear about that. And mental health is not so much about always being happy, and it doesn't always mean mental illness. Mental health is simply how you function in life emotionally, psychologically, and how you act. It really impacts how you feel, how you interact with others. It impacts your relationships. It impacts your thoughts. So anytime you have symptoms that interrupt those things, that's a flag to say, okay, it's time to kind of check in and make sure that I am doing what I need to do to maintain my mental health.
Wow. So I actually experienced the panic attacks where I felt like I went to the doctor. I went to the doctor because I thought I was having a heart attack. And then I found out that I was actually having anxiety attacks. And that went on for a bit. It was when I was probably in my late 20s at like my second teaching job, right? And I actually started losing hair. Like, I had plugs, bald spots, a few of them in the back of my head. So I was having like all of these symptoms that something wasn't right in my life.
Yeah.
And it was that job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up leaving because I ended up resigning from that job because my health was being so impacted. And so once I did that, like, my hair started growing back. She gave me medicine, but she kept saying that take it only if you really feel like you need it, because this medicine is addictive. So I was scared to take it. I never took it.
See? Yeah.
I never took it. I actually left the job and I homeschooled my son for a few years. I watched like other people's kids. One was homeschooling and a few after school. Like, I just did other things because I needed to get away from the job because it was not beneficial for my health.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I kept if I kept staying in that situation, like how much more my health would be impacted.
Yeah.
So I know what that feels like to feel like I'm having a heart attack, but it's all emotional.
Yeah.
Right? It's all emotional.
Yeah. And for me, I know, like, just this week, I was just sharing with someone, like, for me, I don't like clutter, right? And so when I look around my apartment and I start seeing pockets of clutter and things like that, I know that it's time for me to, focus and tune my attention on my mental health. So it's just when you just not in the regular flow of your routine and you just start having these things, and sometimes getting a common cold, like those are physical indicators that we need to tune in to our mental health.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get into our next question.
Mm-hmm.
So what are simple everyday self-care practices that busy people, right? Because sometimes you can't change the stuff that you have to tend to in your life, right? So what are those practices that busy people can incorporate into their routines to maintain their mental health?
Can I address the busyness first?
Yes, sure. You're the professional. Yes, let's do it.
Because, we all have that saying of people make time for who and what they want to make time for.
Mm-hmm.
And we often say that, but we are applying it to other people. Like your friend don't show up when you want them to show up. That person you're dating is not giving you the time that you want. Your supervisor is not, meeting your needs as far as an employee, like you've been trying to schedule meetings with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But recently, not too long ago, I saw a post about business and setting your priorities. And it says, and I had to write it down, but it says, no one is always busy. It just depends on what number you are on their priority list.
Mm.
What number are you on your priority list? And that resonates with me because we use busyness. Yes, we have a lot. There are people who are multitasking a lot. They have a lot on their plate. There are things we have to get done, but you can't do it unless you are well. And so you have to make that you have to be intentional about putting yourself first. So when we talk about people make time for who and what they want to make time for, you really have to ask yourself, am I doing that for me?
Oh, so I love that question.
That.
Am I doing that for me? Am I making time for me?
Where am I on my priority list?
Ooh,
even as a parent, as a mother, as someone who has multiple jobs, we make time for the things and people we want to make time for. That's just point blank. We like to say life is happening, but life is life. Life is going to life all the time. So it's about putting yourself at the top of the list or putting the necessary people, prioritizing your list or the people that's in your life. So I just wanted to drop that.
I really appreciate that. So for me, as someone who deals with codependency, and I was that person who never I didn't even put myself on the list, talking about
exactly.
Prioritize yourself on the list.
Same.
I wasn't even on the list. Okay.
Same.
Everybody else was before me, like everybody else, everything else. And once I started getting healed, and I'm not going to say I'm totally there because I always have to evaluate and just make sure that I'm taking care of myself in that area.
Also ongoing process too.
Ongoing, especially for a recovering codependent. So I started prioritizing myself. I started putting myself first and making time for myself, making time for time alone. Like even when I was married and, my son was young and, my stepkids were young. So I would make that time for myself.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those
practices.
Yeah. What self-care, like some practical ways they can incorporate?
Just some simple things to start out is create you a morning and evening routine. Find something to do in the morning where either you get up, whether if you have a religious faith where you are making sure that you start your day by reading something inspirational, citing an affirmation, prayer. Just create or incorporate some type of morning and afternoon routine. It could be something that's sit in silence for 5 minutes. Just don't do anything. Just sit for 5 minutes before you rush up and get out of bed. It could be something that's that routine as You have to be up by 6:15, but stretch that alarm clock back and open and get up at 6 so you can have that extra span of time. Just giving yourself an opportunity to get grounded before you start your day. So that's some things. Also, just getting active, like just finding your way to get active, doing some exercises. You can do a 5-minute warm up. You could do a 10-minute warm up, a 30-minute warm up. You can go walking. Just create some routines, put some things in place. And again, it goes back to why I brought up the business, because a lot of people say, okay, I have to go here in the morning. I have this. I have to get my children ready. I have, we come up with so many things we have to do, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. So you do have to make sure that you are making yourself a priority when you create these routines, when you create these habits. Make rest a priority. And rest can simply be, a lot of times we like to say today is a lazy day. No, today was a rest day. I needed to lay down. I chose not to do anything. I chose to just rest. So also reframing how we take these breaks, because, we guilt trip ourselves for having those rest moments. So just being mindful of how you speak to yourself, being mindful of, not judging yourself, being kind to yourself, and just taking the time to be intentional. Even coming home from work, sometimes I just sit in silence. Like the first 10 minutes of being at home, I don't do anything. I just need to be still. I need to be quiet because I need to unload from the day. So those are just some simple things. Even listening to some affirmations on the way to work. Like if you could turn, instead of listening to the music, or if music motivates you, sometimes listening to music, listening to gospel music, listen to inspirational music, listen to something that's going to feed you. Listening to mantra loops, those are very helpful. Those are some things that you can do on your way to work, as you're getting dressed. Just find you some routines to incorporate to help you start on that well-being process.
I love that. I love that. Being kind to myself, that took me, it took some work through recovery. And for those of you who might not know, I did a 12-step recovery program for years. I still practice it, even though I don't go to meetings right now for codependency. However, I went through three step studies, which are year-long programs where we take a deep dive into the steps, the 12 steps. So it's no different than what like an alcoholic or a drug addict, sex addict, it's no different from what they would go through. It's just that my focus was codependency. And one of the things that I learned through those programs, I learned that if I would not say it to a stranger, then why would I say it to myself?
That's what I say to my students. Do you talk to your friend?
Right.
I ask them, I say, do you talk to yourself like you talk to your friend?
Exactly. Exactly. We deserve the same honor. Right.
Exactly.
So the thoughts, one of the things that helped me with like ensuring that my thoughts are more kind to myself was definitely the affirmations. Like in the morning, I write them out, I say them out loud, and throughout the day, because it's part of my teaching routine as well in my classroom. Yeah. So my students say their affirmation, I say my affirmation. This week mine was, I am consistent.
Yes. It's so much power in affirmations. Like, a lot of times people, even especially my teenagers, they're just like, what? Like, I'm supposed to just say this to myself. And I'm even practicing in my office. Like, I have a mirror and I'm like, go speak to yourself. Say something kind to yourself. And you'd be amazed how challenging for us as adults to do it as well as kids to do it, but it's very powerful just stating those affirmations. And even if you don't believe it, I tell my students, repeat it until you start believing it, right? Until it start making sense to you. But just saying those affirmations, have an alarm on your phone to set to tell you to bring a message of, you can put a title on your alarm, make that title an affirmation, just so you can have a screensaver. But I have, if you come in my apartment, I have affirmations on my mirror. I have it in places where I frequent often, just so I can just remind myself to speak kindly to myself.
Absolutely.
Because we're our worst critics. We speak so bad to ourselves. We'll always think the worst. And so you have to be reminded. I have a lot of affirmations in my office, and I tell my students, I openly tell them, like, as much as these affirmations on my wall are for you, they're for me. I have to be reminded. I need to know, okay, not to take this personally, because I'm an overthinker. So I have to make sure that I'm processing throughout my day when I'm interacting with multiple people. So yeah.
I love that. One little saying that I got from one of my sorors for me, like, because as someone who deals with codependency, I overthink. Yeah. So Q-tip was the saying, and then that's quit taking it personal.
Yes.
And she says Q-tips.
Yes.
Quit taking it personal, sweetie.
Oh.
So I'll say that to myself sometimes when I get to that point where I'm starting to overthink stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes that helps me.
Yeah.
Like kind of get over it.
Yeah. I got the Q-tip analogy came from our former co-worker. It came to me from our co-worker Tiana.
Okay.
She actually worked in learning support at ASA. So I remember she used that in a staff meeting when she was presenting to us. And so the Q-tip definitely helps you wheel it back in and put things in perspective. But also too, that's another symptom that you might need to help on your well-being. When everything you take in is personal, like you're triggered by everything. And so sometimes you might need to stop and make sure that you are checking in with yourself, because if every little thing throughout the day is just taken personally, that might be another like symptom or indicator for mental health and well-being.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right, let's keep it moving. So, how can mindfulness techniques help reduce stress, and what are some beginner-friendly practices you recommend?
So mindfulness is literally just being intentional about being present. Like how you mentioned earlier, we're busy, so we're thinking about all the things we got to get done. Like, oh, I forgot to do this, so I need to do this. Mindfulness is literally taking a moment to be still and be intentional about being present. And so it's very beneficial with managing stress. There are a lot of different mindfulness techniques. It helps you cut that switch off, like that worry when you go into auto pilot. It gives you that opportunity to just pause, whether it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whether it's 2 minutes. Mindfulness is very beneficial. And so you're really being intentional about where you are. And so one of the first ones that you can do is just like body scanning. Like, what do I need right now? What am I feeling right now? What has me upset right now? Like those are just being intentional to pause and just reflect on some of those things, or to write those questions down to go back and address them later. Another common, most popular mindfulness technique is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you have 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. That is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. So you literally just pause and you kind of, take a moment to glance around where you are. Mindfulness technique can also be used in walking, like just being intentional about what you see, being intentional, paying attention to what you hear, the scents that you smell, the things that you feel along your walk, just the ground, like being intentional about each time you take a step, what does that feel like as you're walking on the ground? So those are some things from mindfulness. And then breathing. Like breathing is so powerful. Taking some deep breaths. A lot of times people are like, just take a deep breath or take a few. It's very powerful, especially for those who are who struggle with anxiety, who are nervous. Like I had to do some breathing techniques for this. Like I told Kimberly, this is not my thing. I could sit with her one-on-one and talk about mental health all day, but you put a camera in my face, it's just like it changes things. So I had to do my own breathing exercises, but I don't know if we have time, but I could share some. So one that's very helpful with Anxiety is calming your nervous system. Like there's different somatic exercises that you can do to help release, trapped feelings, but breathing is one of the top ones. So there's one where you can just take two inhales, like intense short inhales, and then a long exhale. So it's just simply, and if you do that a few times, your body starts to calm down. It starts to relax.
I felt
that is one of the ones you can go to. There's the alternate, and that's something you can do in your office or wherever you are in public. Like, no one even have to even notice. You can be intentional. You can be, just take, especially for those of us aunties where we get to the point where we sit down and exhale all the time. Nobody's not gonna know the difference. You know how you breathe out all the time. Nobody's gonna know the difference. You letting out an exhale. So, but just take some, 2 short breaths and, and be intentional about that. Another one is I like to call it a 5-star. Like you trace your hand. So for each time you go up, you just inhale, and then each time you go down, you exhale, and you just do this up and down. And sometimes you might have to reverse it backwards. You go forward and you go backwards, and you just inhale. If you're sitting at a desk, this is something you can easily do under a desk. Like your hand can sit on your lap and do it. If you want to have your hand up, you can do this. But this is something that is very beneficial. And then another one that's very good for anxiety, like when I have students who are, on the verge of having a panic attack. And that's another thing. When you're anxious, allow yourself to feel anxious. That's another thing about mindfulness is like, I'm in a space right now where I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling anxious. And so it gets worse when you're trying to control it. When you're trying to control that feeling of anxiety, you have to just let it out, let it go, let it release. But it becomes more intense and it becomes troubling for some because we're trying to control it. But just pause and say, I'm anxious. I don't know why, because sometimes you don't know why. And that's the other scary thing. It's like, I was just fine a moment ago. Where is this coming from? We start trying to figure out all those things, but just be present and say, I am anxious. I'm worried, but I am safe. And I am okay having this feeling. This feeling will pass. And so one of the breathing techniques is the alternating nostril technique. And so there's multiple ways you can do it. But one of the ones that I like to do the most is when you put your left hand on your lap and you take your right hand and you use your thumb and your pinky. So what you do is you inhale through the right nostril and then you put your thumb on it and exhale out the left nostril. And then you inhale from the left nostril, close it with your pinky, and exhale out the right. And you rotate back and forth doing that. That helps settles and calm your nervous system, especially for those who become very anxious. So those are just a few mindfulness techniques.
I love that. I actually feel more relaxed.
It does.
In recovery, something we say is feelings aren't facts.
Yes.
Feelings are just feelings that are meant to be processed. And so what brought me, what my rock bottom came from was not allowing myself to feel and process the feelings. Like I ignored the feelings, I suppressed them, I tried to numb them. And any feelings generally unexpressed come out as resentment.
Yes.
But resentment is simply unexpressed anger. And I had a lot of it.
Exactly.
I had a lot of it.
And a lot of times we mask that because we are scared to get to that space. Because either it triggers whatever it is, that memory of what happened that created this trauma or created this reaction. But it's okay. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is it's okay. And it's okay that it's 5 years later and you still are in this space. Right. A lot of times that's when that negative self-talk, like, I can't believe that I'm still crying over this. I can't believe this is still impacting me. It's okay. Your body is having a human reaction. And then a lot of times we bottle things up. It's just like, the simple, I know it's a cliche analogy, but like the Coca-Cola can, like as much as you just keep packing and packing and packing, eventually, and you keep shaking it, it's going to explode. And so
Right.
it's going to manifest itself through resentment. It's going to manifest itself from just, those negative self-talks, these having these panic attacks.
Mhm.
You have to allow yourself to unpack it. And it's scary to do so. That the healing journey is not something that's easy to do. A lot of times we
That's true.
romanticize the healing process, but we spend very little time about warning people about once you start, it's scary. You go through a period of grief. You go through a period of regret because you're like, this is who I was, or this is what I allowed, this is what I did. You go through just grieving the whole like thought of what you went through, what you've gone through. So healing is not an easy process. It's not, but it's worth going through to get to the other side. So
Okay.
I know we often talk about you got to heal, you got to heal. I know I'm one that throws it out there, but like it's not an easy process, but it's definitely one that needs to take place. So allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be in that space of just recognizing the hurt, recognizing the emotions, and allowing it to let it go.
Yes. And while we're talking about emotions, can we normalize humanizing emotions and not putting them to genders?
Oh yes.
Like, what in the world? Where did this whole thing come from where men aren't supposed to cry? Like,
Yeah.
it's a human emotion.
Yes.
So can we normalize
Yes.
humanizing emotions? Because we all feel them.
Yeah. But you'll be surprised at how many people in general, like I think about students on my caseload, like I don't cry. I don't like to cry. I'm like, let's see, human response. It's a human
Right.
emotion. That's your body telling you you need to release.
Release.
You
Yeah,
need
yeah.
some form of release. So allow it to release. That doesn't make you weak. That doesn't mean that that person has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
It means your body is having a human reaction. And I say, congratulations, you're human.
Right.
Because congratulations, you have, your body has a normal response to,
Right.
to outside stimuli. So just, it's okay. So
Yeah.
allow yourself to cry. So crying is another thing. Like just have your moment. I like to call them ETs, emotional timeouts. That's what I tell my students. And I also tell my friends, like,
Mhm.
take an ET, emotional timeout, because eventually it's going to take it for you. So
Right.
for those of us who like to control every situation like me, you might as well put yourself in a position where you can control that time where you sit and have that emotional timeout. And what that looks like for you may look different from me, but it could be simply watching that movie that makes you cry, listening to that song that makes you cry, having a moment to just sit and be in an uncomfortable space.
Yeah.
So
I like emotional timeout. I also call it a spiritual bath.
Yes.
Because it's a release.
Mhm.
It's a release. And normally after I have a release, I feel better.
Exactly.
I feel better. And also this whole and I like that you brought up even like some of your female students, because I know in our community, the African American community, there's this whole notion, I don't know what else to call it, of the strong Black woman. And are you strong because you're not strong because you cry, or
Exactly.
are you strong because you don't cry? Like
Exactly.
it is just a human emotion,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why I say let's normalize humanizing these emotions, because
Yeah.
I don't.
And the whole concept of just being a strong woman, I like to look at as focusing on more so the strength of being able to manage and cope and deal with your emotions, emotionally regulate. Those are the things that I feel like that personify the strength of a woman,
Right.
versus what like you said, how we put it on where you suppress things. Like that's not being a strong woman. That's not being that is not an indicator of strength, of suppressing your emotions and just putting emotions on the back burner and keeping moving. Like that's not a healthy way. And that's the way we have been wired.
Right.
And that's the way society kind of tells us that we have to move, but we have to break that stigma. We have to get to a place where we are okay with not being okay.
Right.
Like that we have to be okay with not being okay. There's no other way to put it. So
yeah. I love that what you said, because like I think suppressing the emotions is unhealthy. It has nothing to do with strength. It's just unhealthy.
It's unhealthy, yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. This can be a problem for a lot of people. And in fact, if you looked up a person that didn't have any boundaries, you probably would have seen my picture when I was at the height of my codependent behaviors. So setting boundaries can be challenging, especially in professional environments. What do you suggest for creating and maintaining healthy boundaries? And we can say personally and professionally. What do you suggest?
Like, as I stated before, even those years as a school counselor and as a therapist, my aha moment for setting boundaries was not until I sat with, so Nedra Tawwab has a book called Setting Boundaries, Finding Peace. Life-changing. Read the book. I didn't even know I had problems with boundaries or the level I had with boundaries until I actually sat and read that book. It's very enlightening, and it definitely helps. But you setting boundaries is about protecting yourself. It's about managing your well-being. It's not a selfish act. But also, too, let me take this back. We got to get out this mindset of being selfish is a bad thing, right? In the sense of your well-being, in the sense of your mental health and well-being, there's no such thing as selfish, you know. And having conversations like, I feel so selfish, but I'm like, taking care of you is a priority. So let me not use that term, because it's okay to be selfish when it comes to you and your mental well-being. But it's about protecting your space, because a lot of times we do things and we engage in things and say yes to a lot of things to try to keep the peace or to try to get along. Whereas we're interrupting our inner peace because we are putting ourselves in positions that we don't want to be in. So setting your boundaries is simply about first checking in with yourself, like, what matters to me? What do I need? Setting your priorities, setting your intentions. And then you have to be bold enough to communicate them to those in your personal life and professional life. You have to have those conversations about your expectations. You can't assume, just from hanging around with somebody all the time, just from being around, you have to do those check-ins to find out what are those boundaries and be okay communicating those. Being okay to say no. I always tell people no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anybody an explanation. Exactly. If you don't want to go, no. Right. Can you come and help me right now? I'm sorry, no. Don't say I'm sorry. I'm sorry about saying I'm sorry. And look at me. See how I do that? But just say no. I'm not available. Right. I can't. This is not a good time for me. Yeah. No thanks. Those are things to say instead of saying I'm sorry, and instead of giving excuses. But no is a complete sentence. So just making sure you set your priorities, stick to those priorities. Once you tell somebody your boundaries, you may have to remind them and you may have to repeat them, because as soon as you are loose or let something slide, then you're giving them permission to, violate your boundaries. And it's okay to have a conversation. Anyone who knows me, I'm okay with having a challenging conversation with people. I will have that conversation if I feel like there's a concern, if I feel like something that needs to be addressed. I would say professionally, in my role, I sit with, anytime I have a new administrator, whether they're coming new to the school that I'm at, or whether I am going to a new school, I sit down and have a conversation and say, what are your expectations? Okay, these are my expectations. Man, I have to remind them. Like for me, I have a hard boundary when it comes to my time. So after work, I don't check emails. So if there's something that I need to do, if there's an emergency, I tell my supervisors, look, you need to WhatsApp me if it's something that's going to require my immediate attention, if it's an emergency. But you have to be specific about how you protect your time. Some other professional boundaries is like being mindful of like a working lunch, like separate yourself from your desk or separate yourself from the space. Be mindful of, telling people to respect your time during that lunch. But time is one of the biggest things when it comes to professional boundaries, as well as personal. Just, telling people, listen, at this time, and people know me, I have to take a nap. I need a nap. I gotta have a nap. And so I let people know, like, even if I travel with them, like, listen, I gotta lay down and have a nap. You all can continue to go. You can do what you need to do, but I have to take a nap.
Right.
So just being intentional about communicating your boundaries, communicating what your expectations are, because it is part of being your well-being. It is part of your self-care. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. It can be challenging. It can be uncomfortable. You can practice with a friend if you need to, especially when it comes to the professional setting. But you have to communicate your boundaries, because otherwise, you have to teach people how to treat you.
That part.
You have to teach people how to treat you. And I used to be one when I was younger. I'd be like, I shouldn't have to teach nobody how to treat me. I shouldn't have to tell them. They should know. No, everyone's different. No one knows. And I especially to say that about relationships. Right. I should tell him how to.
He should know. He should know. He should be knowing. He should know what I think in my head.
Yes. And uncommunicated expectations ruin relationships. It ruins relationships. It ruins friendships. It ruins a lot of things. So you have to communicate your expectations. And so you're operating with these expectations that you have not communicated to your friend, to your spouse, or to whomever. And then they violate those expectations, and you have an attitude, and you are, have resentment towards them. And meanwhile, they don't even know that was an expectation.
Right.
So
girl, I lived it. That's why I'm laughing. Okay. I happily divorced, right?
But I did.
But that's part of the reason why.
But I did it, and you live and you learn. Part of the healing process.
Girl.
You live and you learn. So you have to communicate those expectations. But not only in those romantic relationships, but in friendships, you have to communicate those expectations, because we operate with these uncommunicated expectations, and it creates tension, it creates resentment, it creates bitterness. And free yourself.
Right.
Free yourself.
Free yourself.
Free yourself.
Yes, no is a complete sentence. No, I've said that to my coaching clients, that no is a complete sentence. I've had them write out exactly like what they're going to say if the person persists, because sometimes people will. Like when they're not used to it, like if something new you're trying to do is like really start enforcing your boundaries, and they're not used to it, they're going to persist. Okay. So write it out in advance so you can have your go-tos. I love I'm not available at that time. I'm not available for that. No, this is not in line with what I need to do right now. Just write it all out. If you want to offer more, because they'll persist.
Exactly. They'll persist, and they'll take it personal. They'll think you're acting funny, you changing, you doing whatever they want to say. So the way I tell people, if I notice that I need to make some adjustments, I have that challenging conversation like this, and I need to do a reset. Things are going to look different. They're going to feel different. Because these are some boundaries I have recently put in place. These are boundaries that I need. It has nothing to do with who you are or who you mean to me.
Right.
This is more so about me. So I'm asking you to understand and respect that this is how we moving forward. And you have to do those resets, because sometimes we just start. Once you heal, like you get to this place where you just be like, you ready to say no to everything. You start getting to that place where you like, it's all about me. You grow. And so but you also have to communicate and let people know what these new changes are, because it can create friction. So and that goes to that uncommunicated expectation. Like, I'm healed. You should know I'm healed. You should know I don't do that anymore. Right. So that's why you got to have that conversation to say, hey, this is what I need. This is what's happening. So
yeah. Just for all of you who are on all the different platforms, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, but because of the nature of this conversation, I know I'm seeing comments, and hey, Tiara, I see you here. Yes, we see you here. We love you.
Love you.
And everybody who's here, we really appreciate y'all being here. Understand the way that this conversation is set up. It's kind of difficult for me to host, have all these platforms going, and also respond to your comments. I will definitely do it after the live.
Hey, Rofizzle.
Thank you for being here. The other thing that I do want to say is the negative feelings that you may experience if this setting boundaries thing is new for you. you're probably going to experience some negative feelings, and that's okay. That's normal.
Yes.
That's just a part of it. As you continue to practice and enforce your boundaries and respect the other people's boundaries,
Yes.
like it'll go away.
Yes.
It'll start getting easier.
It gets easier.
Set up a plan for taking care of yourself after you've set the boundary and you experience those negative feelings, right? So set up something, set up your plan for dealing with that. I just wanted to say that.
Yes, I agree. You have to be kind to yourself, and just be okay with it. Like, it's not going to feel good. You know, the first time I just said no as a complete sentence, I was like,
Yep.
Like, you go through all these emotions, and then a lot of times people are okay. They're like, okay, girl.
Right.
It's all right.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, oh, okay. But you, like Kimberly said, you have to practice it. It's not something that comes easy. Because a lot of times, again, I know I'm guilty of it. We tell people what to do and give them the tools, and it sounds like it's supposed to be effortlessly done, and it's not easy. So us telling you about these boundaries, you're going to feel some emotions inside, and like she said, just take note of those emotions.
Yeah. It's much easier for me now because I've been practicing it for so long. Yeah. I started recovery in 2010, and I've been in recovery ever since, you know. So, and I have moments, however, like setting boundaries and delegating tasks, because I'm the president of my sorority chapter here. I don't have a problem delegating tasks because when I was at the height of my codependency, I'm doing it all. I was the yes girl. I was the yes girl, and people knew they could count on me to do it all. But like now, I prioritize myself. I delegate those tasks, and I own my no. Yes, that's my. I love to say
no.
Own your no. Okay, own it.
Own the no and own who you are.
Yes.
Flaws and all.
And I love this. Uncommunicated expectations ruins relationships. I had to write it down. That's a gem right there. She dropped a gem. Okay? She dropping a lot of gems. That one really resonated with me. So I had to write that one down. All right, let's continue. Mental health breaks are crucial, but many people feel guilty or unproductive when taking them. How can we overcome this mindset and prioritize these breaks?
Yes, we kind of talked about this earlier about the ET, the emotional timeout, and the spiritual bath. But what you need to remind yourself is it's okay to put you first. I like to refer to this as called the airplane mode. So, you know, you get on the plane, the stewardess come in and they give you the training. And who do they tell you to put the mask on first?
Yourself.
Put it on yourself. The whole cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't help somebody if you're not full, if you're not healthy, if you're not well. So when you start thinking or going down that rabbit hole of like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, or I have all these things, or so-and-so dependent on me. If you can't show up as your best self, you're still not showing up. So pour into yourself. Do what you need to do for you and be okay with it. Be okay. Because one thing that's going to happen is either you take the time to do what you need to do for you, or time is going to take away from you and you're not going to be able to do the things you enjoy. So take those moments, do what you need to do to make sure you're putting yourself first and be okay with it. If you want to sit on a couch all day and you have tasks that you need to complete, but that's your body saying we need to be still. Your body tells you ways in which you need to be still. It will tell you. So you either control it or it's going to control you. So just remember, go into flight mode. Like the stewardess tells you, you have to put your mask on first before I help you. What I look like trying to help her, and I don't have oxygen. I'm trying to help her breathe. So you have to be able to go into flight mode and be okay with it. And it's not an easy thing to start practicing. To do, but once you practice, you get better at it. You really do. And you're going to see a difference in you and how you show up. I saw a quote or interview where I can't even remember his name, but he was just saying the best thing you can do for anybody is to take care of yourself first and to show up in your most authentic, well-being self. So if you're showing up, you're moody, you're irritable, you're withdrawn, you're really not showing up the way you need to show up for those people. So you might as well put you first.
I love that. And I had to write this other gem down that you just dropped. If you can't show up as your best self, you're not showing up. That's really good. I love that. I love that. I wanted to go back because when we were talking about boundaries, you dropped the name of a book. Can you drop that name of that book one more time?
Yes, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. It's by Nedra Tawwab, Nedra, Nedra, and then I think her last name is spelled Tawwab, or it might be Tawwaab. But she has a very active Instagram page. She's a licensed therapist, and so that book, I promise you, like again, the many years that I've been in this field, it helped me to help myself as well as help me to help others. So
yes,
it's very beneficial. There's a workbook that goes with it. I've read it twice. I did it individually, and then I did it with a group of friends here, some young ladies here. We did like a kind of book study on it.
Oh, nice.
And so yeah.
I wanted to add a book also that changed my life too, and it's just called Boundaries. And I believe Stephen Covey is one of the authors. I hope I'm saying the right, because I will jack up the name. But the book is just called Boundaries.
Yeah.
That I read when I was going through recovery, one of my step studies. I can't remember if it was the first or the second step study. And that book also is very helpful if you are still in that process of setting boundaries, understanding how boundaries work. So there's just another resource for you. All right, let's get into the next question. What resources or support systems do you recommend for individuals who feel overwhelmed and need additional help with their mental health?
So some resources, there are some online resources, there are apps. First and foremost, I like to say, get you a village. Like you definitely need a village. We always say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to heal someone. So, or to maintain someone's mental health, I would say. But get you a village, someone that, people that in your corner that you can be okay being vulnerable with, that you can talk to. If you feel like you need additional support, there are apps such as the Calm app that helps. There's another one that's called Balance. You get a year free subscription with them. There's another app that's called, I think it's something with habits. I can't remember the name of it. Habit Share. So that's a resource, as well as Mental Health America. If you go on their website, they have a lot of free tools, a lot of free resources. So if you go to Mental Health America, you can Google it, because I think their website is mhanationals.org, but just look up Mental Health America. They have a lot of resources on there. They even have a mental health awareness like quiz you can take to just kind of get an idea of where you are. There's Psychology Today that has resources, as well as a list of therapists that may be in your state, that may be in your area, you can use. Let's see. Trying to think. Oh, so because we're internationally, I get the privilege of just meeting counselors and therapists from other countries, and there's one an Australian-based website that helps with grief, and it's called Beyond Blue. And they have a lot of free resources that you can use on there as well.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, so we got apps, Balance, but this is good. Like Balance, Calm, and Habit Share. And then websites are Mental Health America and Beyond Blue.
Yes. And with that support system, like with Habit Share, for me, sometimes when I know I need to do something to change a habit or start incorporating habits, I like to do challenges. I do challenges with a friend. It might be a 10-day challenge, 7-day, 30-day challenge. Those help me. So having that accountability piece helps. And so habit share allows you to set your whatever habit or activity you're going to do. You can share it with someone so they can hold you accountable. So my friend Adrian, I'm not sure if she's on, my dear friend Adrian, we and her used to share the habit share. So she could look at me and she could look at the app and say, Tara, I see where you skipped this the past 2-3 days. What's going on with that? So being able to do that is another good tool. But just starting out by setting some challenges for yourself. My sister, we were just talking about that. Like sometimes it's good for her to do like a 7-day challenge if she's trying to implement a lifestyle change or some type of habit. So yeah.
I don't know if she's on. Why did I forget your sister's name? Carla. Carla, hopefully she's on. Actually, Grow Inspire Sparkle is doing a 15-day mental health. Well, it's a self-care challenge for Mental Health Awareness Month. So that's why we're having this particular live, because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're in the middle of a 15-day self-care challenge. And I'm mostly posting on TikTok. So you can follow me at grow_inspire_sparkle if you want to continue with this 15-day challenge with me. Or you can just start it over because the videos are there. Okay, great. I love that. I love challenges.
This is another resource, you know. A coach right here, life coach, transformational coach. This is another resource, and she has books. I can't recall the title of the most.
Sisterhood Unbound.
Yes, but yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I love helping. I work mainly with women, women of color, but my resources are for anybody, you know. So let's go into the deeper stuff. Like this one is really important. All of them are important. I think this one is really important because the question is, what are the signs that may indicate that people need to seek professional help? So what are those signs?
So we talked about some common signs earlier. When you think about those signs, it's the prolonged state of emotional distress. That's the key. When it's prolonged, also the level of intensity. So the level of worry, the level of anxiety, and the timing of it. Like, you know, again, mental well-being, mental health is not about being happy and joyous all the time. We have those periods of sadness, but it's the prolonged periods of sadness. It's the prolonged periods of depression. It's, you know, major disruptions to your life functions, you know, your inability to just get up and go to work, your inability to just get up and get out of bed, you know. So it's those prolonged things as well as the intensity of that level of anxiety, that level of anger that can impact, that lets you know that you need to get professional help. And that professional help could be in the form of, again, a therapist or a coach. It's right here. No, right there.
All right. Sorry, y'all. We're trying to continue on TikTok, but because TikTok only give you like an hour or something like that. Okay, maybe we're here. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. All right. So if it lasts longer than, or do you not want to put it like a time frame?
So when it start lasting for like 3 weeks or more, like prolonged periods of intense feelings or emotions, anxiety, like that lets you know there's some things that you may want to consider. You know, you might want to start out by using some of those tools, and sometimes you might need to talk to a friend. Like a lot of times we keep so much in. I know I was one of them. I was a lockbox. Like I would not open up. Like and plus I'm so used to just being a listener in my profession that sometimes it's you know, I'm automatically more so a listener than just opening up. But I've learned, especially being here, developing, you know, bonds with people here, learning to open up, learning to be more vulnerable, etc. But just sometimes you might just need to talk and get some things out. But again, it's the prolonged state of emotional distress, the navigating like your daily routines, the inability to do so lets you know that you or someone that you may know, you see these things, may need professional help. And so you can do, again, Psychology Today has a list of therapists. There's the mental health for Black girls or Black girls. I can't remember the name.
I know the site.
Yes. So they have a whole list of therapists that's, in your area. And so, that's the time to when you know that you need to get professional help.
Okay. So let me just say this. I went through some really, really difficult times where I'm sure I had a nervous breakdown. It was mild. It was a mild nervous breakdown, but a nervous breakdown nonetheless, right? Because of something that happened to a very close family member. And people had to donate to my sick leave because, like, I when I say I could not get out of bed, like I was balled up in a fetal position for days, and I finally did go to counseling. But like at that time, now things might be different now, especially after the pandemic. But at that time, all they gave was 3 sessions. Like you got 3 sessions with your. I got 3 sessions with my health plan, but after that, then I would have to pay, right? So I only got like those 3 sessions. That's really all I could afford at that time. I couldn't pay out of pocket. So like for me, as far as like my prolonged healing, like when I tell you, I'm so thankful for Celebrate Recovery because I healed from so many things through that, and it was free.
Yes, because there are support groups as well. If
Right.
you can't, do one-on-one therapy, if you can't get a life coach, there are support groups. And then sometimes there are faith-based organizations that can provide free services as well. So.
Yeah, Celebrate Recovery was through my church. Well, they called it something different, but the curriculum that we used was Celebrate Recovery. And most of you probably know the Purpose-Driven Life. It's the person who created Celebrate Recovery is out of that church, that same church. So what I'm saying to y'all is, like, if you are in a position where you can't like actually pay for, like, and like I'm saying, things might be so different now because when this happened to me, it was like 2008 or something like that, 2004. It was a long time ago. I don't know. Things could be so different now with health insurance in the US. However, if you find yourself in a position where you would have to pay out of pocket and you can't, consider a recovery or a support group, because even when you seek professional help, like with a mental health professional, they're working with you, but like you still got to do the work. Like you still got to go. They're going to give you assignments. So if you can't do it, just, find a support group or a recovery group.
And I'm glad you brought that up because even when you seek help, a lot of times it's uncomfortable. It's not easy to go in and, allow yourself to just open up and talk to a therapist. But once you start getting through that initial conversation, you can determine how those sessions go. Like you regulate those sessions, you find a therapist that's a good fit. You don't have to go with the first therapist that come across, you have a couple sessions, you tell them what you need. Again, communicating your boundaries, communicating your expectations, what it is that you need. And, until you find that right fit, then, continue to look around. Also to be honest with yourself and your therapist. When I did part-time therapy, sometimes people come in and they talking about one thing, but there's another underlying issue that's not, being addressed. And I always use the analogy, when you go to the doctor, if you have a stomach ache, you don't go in there complaining about your arm. You tell them that your stomach is hurting so they can focus on the stomach versus coming, when you go to therapy, you just tell them I just been stressed at work right now, but not recognizing that there might have been something that the stress from work exists, but it's a trigger that may be dealing with something else, or your inability to emotionally regulate, or your, inability to navigate through life, whatever the case may be. But just be open and honest about what it is that you need, because The therapist is there to help you and to you determine how well that process works.
Yes, that is so
And
good.
even with coaching, like be honest
Right.
about why you need to coach. Like be honest about what it is that, whatever it is that you do, be honest about what it is.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just holding up your healing process.
You're holding up the healing process, and all you're doing is just paying for a way to suppress your emotions because you're already suppressing them. So then you go and get these services, and you're not utilizing them the way you can. You just paying to suppress your emotions. So
that's good. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. All right, we coming towards the end. So, what parting advice do you have for us regarding mental health? What do you want to leave the people with?
I guess it's a few things. I just want to recap some of the things that I said as far as it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
It's okay to put you first and start cultivating self-kindness and compassion. Be mindful of how you speak to yourself. It's so natural for us to automatically say something negative or to think the worst in a situation. But be kind, be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, and know that it's okay for you to put yourself first. Make time for you.
I love that. This has been wonderful. That's why I had to have you back, because so the first time that I had Tara, we did tea with Tara, and I forgot to press record on the StreamYard. That's what happened. So it was my first, maybe my second one or something like that, and I was still learning StreamYard, and I forgot to press record. And that was such a good show. Remember?
I remember.
Girl. So I had to have Tara back. I hope that you all have gotten a lot of gems from this queen right here. Tea with Tara.
And again, she coined that T with Tara. Like I use T as an acronym about taking effective action for your well-being, but she coined T with Tara. So I cannot take credit for that. This came from this woman here, and she's determined that I'm going to do something with that. So yeah.
It's catchy, right? It just rolls off the tongue. Tea with Tara. So how can the people keep up with you? Because big things are coming. Big things are coming, okay?
As of right now, I don't have a platform that's related to Tea with Tara or anything. My platforms are strictly personal, just for me to share memes between friends or post memes. That's one of my love languages, sharing reels with people. But yeah, I'm working on something. That's with this one right here. You eventually hear or see something.
Well, I did share your Instagram handle.
Okay. Yeah.
So the people have that. Do you want to share that, or you?
I mean, if you shared it already.
I shared it. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on again, sis.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for stretching me outside my comfort zone.
Thank you all for tuning in. Remember that we have Sparkle Saturdays every fourth Saturday of the month. So, just look for the post, because every fourth Saturday we go either live or sometimes it's pre-recorded, but every fourth Saturday we are here with Sparkle Saturdays. This show is all about empowering women. If you're a man and you tune in, I hope you got something too. Okay, we do speak primarily to the women, but we know that a lot of this stuff is universal, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope that you all got a lot of value out of today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the fourth Saturday next month.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. I don't know how to end this live on here. Okay, end. Okay, there we go. All right. Thanks. I'm going to check y'all comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Oh, Emily was on. Yeah. Okay.